Welcome to Toot Your Own Horn Music Matters. Today I am here with band director Jonathan Knopfel, who also happens to be an amazing flute player. And I'm really excited, Jonathan, for you to tell our audience your story about how you chose the flute and how it evolved for you.
I have a really weird, kind of not normal story. I went to a small school in northwestern Oklahoma. My mom was a school teacher and a church organist. My dad was a farmer, so I kind of had a really mixed background in terms of like what my path was in life. Our band director taught elementary music. Our band we didn't have a choir program, and so I got to fourth grade, did the recorders, loved it, tested instruments. They wanted to put me on saxophone. I was at that time. My mother was. I was the second child. My sister's 10 years older than me. She played the flute. She's also a great flute player and a fabulous vocalist. I was the one that when like piano lessons happened, I flaked out as a child. And my mother was like, "Oh my gosh, we are not going down this route again. So if you're going to be in band, you're going to use one of the school instruments." And so they checked out the school saxophone and it was a trash can. And I was the perfect example of a kid that plays an instrument that's broken and quit band. I quit band. I went and did art for a year. And then I went, wait a minute, I really wanted to be in band. I was the only kid in my family, my mom's side of the family, that didn't play some form of instrument or like have formal singing training of some kind. And so I picked up my sister's flute over the summer after fifth grade and I worked through the beginning band book and I joined band in sixth grade. And at that point, I was with the class and almost ahead of the class at that point because I had gotten further in the book. And like I said, my mother was a musician and my sister was a musician. And so I had their guidance over the summer. And so really, I just worked independently for like that first year I missed. My band was really, really small. And so all the instruments were all in one class. There was not like a breakout individual flute class, individual clarinet class, which is what I teach now. I taught the homogeneous band classes for 3 years, and that's to band directors that do that. That is an art form, and that's a skill. That's a classroom management skill that is brilliant if done correctly. I got to college, and my mother had really encouraged me to go with my dad. You know, having family farms. My mom had encouraged me to pursue a degree in ag. And so I actually did a degree in agriculture before I did my music degree. And my last year at Oklahoma State University, I was the executive director of homecoming and I needed another credit hour. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go be in marching band. I haven't done band in 3 years. I really miss it. And so I did marching band for a semester and I was like, what the heck have I done with my life? And so that flipped the switch. I completed my one degree and I started my second undergraduate degree. And I was like, you know what? Life is for taking risks and redoing your path and figuring it out. And I did it. I worked full time on the side. And the cool part was because I had completed all my gen ed classes, I also got to be a really active in choir in college and sing under a great college choral conductor and learned a lot. And a lot of that I use in my class. I use as a band director today too. So I'm really thankful. Like I said, I have a really weird path of how I got to where I am. I'm really thankful for how that played out. I've been teaching, this is year 12 and a half or 13, somewhere there. I graduated in December, so I started teaching in January. So I'm always never on a even cycle. So I think this is year 13, if technically. Last two schools I worked at are 6A Oklahoma schools, and both do a full concert band program, a full marching band program, and whatnot. With the classes I teach beginning clarinet, beginning flute at the sixth grade level, and then I'm in charge of basically in charge of getting our double reed kits switched over. And then I also teach middle school concert bands and high school concert bands, in addition to assisting with marching band. So yeah, that's kind of the short story.
That's amazing. I want to go back though to your college days because it sounds like your family was so musically oriented that it was easy for you to participate. But the place that I'm wondering about is when you didn't pursue it in college.
That's kind of another story. It's kind of hard to explain. My family is comes from a farming family. On that side, there's a side of my family where we have farms and whatnot and cattle. My mother had honestly gotten to a point with teaching where she didn't want me to be in a classroom. She was just burned out. She was exhausted. It wasn't when she retired. It wasn't an enjoyable experience, and she had a really like her last couple of years of teaching. She didn't have a great administrator that created an environment that was fun working in, and she was established in the community. Our farms were there, and so it wasn't a situation where she could easily change to a new school for her position. So when she was at retirement, she was very adamant. She's like, "I don't want you anywhere near a school. I want you doing something else besides being in a school." Tough part was this person that had been a model my whole life. All she had been was this great classroom teacher that I wanted to be. I never wanted to teach in a classroom. I wanted to like band was where my love was. And so I wanted to be in a band room. And that really was like I said, it was one of those things where she pushed me one direction. I went, oh, I listened, but okay, I did it long enough and know that now this is really where I want to be. I've not been in a similar situation that she's been in. I cross my fingers because I know teachers that have been in those situations where it's exhausting and it wears you out and it takes a toll on your health. It took a huge toll on her health. And so she didn't want me to be in that same position. And so she pushed really, really, really hard for me to go into an agriculture industry business type career, and that just really wasn't what I wanted, and it wasn't where I was happy, and it wasn't where I thrived. So I'm real thankful that I was able to be flexible at the end of my degree to go, hey, I want to start a second degree, even though I probably should have been starting a master's at that point. During my ag degree, I didn't really touch an instrument. That's the thing. As I When I went back, I picked my instrument. I picked my instrument up to be a marching band, and I went, hey, I really miss this. I practiced a lot that semester, both kind of going back to my fundamental things I learned in private lessons and school and band. And then I started taking lessons that spring with Connor Nelson at OSU.
Mhm.
And he took really good care of me and literally took me from ground up. The cool part was because I hadn't played my flute a whole lot over those 3 years. There's a lot of things where you come out of high school and you get a new teacher and you go, oh my gosh, I got to fix all these things. My body had kind of forgotten some of them, and
Mhm.
so I was kind of I still had all of the knowledge base. I knew everything that I needed to know, but I was a little bit more malleable because I hadn't been the muscle memory had a chance to sleep a little bit before it was brought back to life, and so it was a little bit more malleable when I came back to it. I had to work really really hard that first couple semesters to kind of get back on my feet and figure out how to play the flute again at a collegiate level. I knew when I was in college that my goal was not like a collegiate professional route. I wanted to be a band director. I wanted to be in a classroom. Still on the flip side though, I challenged myself really, really hard. I worked really hard. I sang in choirs. I played in ensembles. I put a lot of time into my senior recital and things like that to prepare music at a high level because I wanted to be the best musician I could be when I left my degree program. That being said, you don't get all the great music without BAG from the very beginning. Those kids have to learn it somewhere and they have to start somewhere. And I enjoy being in that environment. I enjoy being in the high school environment, seeing that growth that happens. On the flip side, I love, like, I just got back from Midwest. I saw you at Midwest, and I love being in that environment where I get to see professional and amazing high school ensembles play. And I have friends and I know people that are doing those things. And yes, I want that. I want my kids, and as they go to high school, to be able to do those things as they play in our top ensembles. But at the same time, I also respect the band directors that go, hey, I also enjoy teaching beginners and teaching middle school and teaching the fundamentals and the foundations. Do I think that band directors need to be work hard to be pedagogically sound at that beginning level? Yeah, they do. You have to know what the end game is for an instrument when you're teaching at the beginners. There's lots of questions I ask all the time about beginning clarinet because I teach a whole bunch of beginning clarinet players and I am not a clarinet player. Clarinet was probably one of the harder instruments I went through in method classes in college, just because my embouchure did not like it. I play the flute and it has no muscular shape whatsoever. And the clarinet is very set and very firm. And so I remember Babette, my clarinet professor, she put me through like 3 or 4 different mouthpieces to get me to make the right sounds. I did a whole bunch of different things to help me get that shape. And so I kind of take the same approach with beginners too, and the fact that, sometimes we have to work through the anatomy that's there with the student to figure out what they need. They have to start somewhere.
What are some of your goals professionally as a teacher with your students?
Well, right now I'm working on my master's in administration. I don't know that I want to be a principal anytime soon or ever, but I do at some point would love to be a fine arts director or go on that route where I can, work with a school district to help make improvements for all aspects of fine arts,
Mhm.
and to see that we are creating great environments for students to learn in, be it band, be it choir, be it orchestra, be it elementary music, whatever it may be. There's a lot that happens in a school setting that's not just English, math, and science. There's a lot there, and we create those environments. Just like athletics is an important part, fine arts are also play a huge role in what our students get to be a part of in school, either being in a principal or a fine arts role. That's kind of where my path is headed eventually, I think. But it will be a long time before I leave a band classroom because I just enjoy doing it. I'm really thankful I work with a really creative director that he can sell beginning band like it's the new best thing ever. And so my middle school, we are actually really high on our recruitment levels. And I'm really fortunate for that. I also teach in a school setting that band is well respected. I know there are many fellow colleagues that they're fighting scheduling issues, space issues, instrument issues, many of those things that are the hurdles that are all that that factor into some of the struggles. Having band where the kids meet, or orchestra or choir where you see the kids every 4 days. That's not really band. That's a show up and let's play with something for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And because that kid's not going to have that continued buy-in that they have where they're in a class 5 days a week, like they are for math or they are for language arts. Music, there's I'm sure all the studies that show support for fine arts and for especially for band and for music specifically of how it helps students. But it has to be consistent. It has to be built into their day in order for that to be successful.
If somebody was listening to this and really fascinated by the thought of getting more involved in music or playing a wind instrument, what would you tell them to do right now?
I would tell them to one, put their kid in sixth grade band or fifth grade band or whatever your band starts, or orchestra, choir, whatever it may be. And then number two, I would say take lessons, take lessons, take lessons, take lessons, take lessons. So much can be learned in that little amount of time. And it's just such a joyous experience, like learning to play an instrument.